You are?
I'm Thomas Van Stein.
And tell me about this work here, about what design issues are going on.
Design issues, well, no more than 3 areas of interest to simplify the design. The focal point.
And they are?
The focal point would, of course, be the area of most contrast, which is the fireworks. Second area of interest would be the figures against the background of the light. And then over here to the right, a little flashing geography here on the corner, and then of course back. So the eye moves around in succession from the first most important thing to the second most important thing to the third most important thing, and then back.
Any other design principles? Color, shadow, other things?
This is more what you call more of a 3-4 composition. In a grid, you've got 3 elements here, okay, 3 going this way, and then the focal point, of course, is there, and then you've got a line in the middle here and another line here. So you've got 4 that way and 3 this way, so it's a 3-4 ratio.
Well, what's the intended tone, or what do you want people to feel?
Overall tone, okay, well, tone is more, you mean as far as a mood?
Yeah.
It's a nocturne, and so I'm after the chiaroscuro, it's called. It's the light-dark contrast, made famous by Vermeer and Rembrandt. And so what I want them to feel is the glow of the night and the whole feeling behind nocturnes, which you can't really, unless this is dark enough during the daytime, you'd never see this kind of contrast. So there's something about fireworks that are exciting. And this, of course, is Butterfly Beach, and this is done actually not this year, but last year's fireworks from Butterfly Beach, looking at the grand finale off of Stearns Wharf.
How do you work?
Quickly. I work just like I do in a daytime landscape. I get my palette all working, I get all the masses together and all the highlights, mid values and darkest values together on the palette first. And then I start, with this one especially, I started laying it in before the fireworks started. Darkest values, 3 mid values, and then I hold off on the highlights till the very end when the fireworks are going off. Okay, so I work darkest value, next lightest, next lightest, next lightest, next lightest, and then at the end is when the fireworks are going off. That's when I start adjusting the lights and the darks and adding more of the highlights. So.
Who are you painting for? For yourself? For
Yeah.
the consumer?
No, for myself. Always for myself. I paint and hope to sell, not paint to sell. If it sells, that's icing on the cake. But it's more about me capturing the moment and the light. And
are there some commercial considerations, like a firework may sell better than a plant?
No, not in this case. I've been painting nocturnes for a long time, and I've always been excited about the, like I said, the glow and the feeling of the night. And so that's what I try to get, is the feeling. There's a lot of night pictures that, I mean, like this one of Arturo's right here, you can tell when they're done on location. They've got a certain feel of reality. In fact, Arturo's the one who introduced me to the whole concept of night painting back in 1989 when we were out on Santa Cruz Island painting with the Oak Group for a show out there. So anyway, that's the difference between a plein air nocturne where you feel what it is and someone who's doing it from a photograph. Artists who paint from photographs sometimes don't have that level of reality or realism or the sensualness of what it's like to be in the elements at night. And so that's what I'm after, is more the feeling of it, as opposed to just a pretty picture of the night.
Tell me about the technique. Is it tiny brushes, big brushes?
No, mostly big brushes to little brushes. Okay, the littlest brush was in the highlights here, but most of the time it was all just using filberts, anywhere from 8s and 6s and 4s for this size to get it done.
Anything else you'd like to say about or your work?
My work, I hope it's timeless.
That's nice. That's what you'd like it to
Yeah, timeless is that it could be It could be now, and it could be 100 years from now, or 100 years ago, right? And I was thinking about that today. It's like, if you strive to create a timeless piece of artwork, then chances are it will transcend time. It will go on. So life is short, but art is long. So.
Do you ever come back to your past paintings and rework them?
Yeah, sure. Sometimes, especially if they don't sell. Like if I'm, something didn't sell, and I'm looking at it, and I go, well, maybe what's going on? And then I'll see something. Or as I evolve as an artist, I might see something that I didn't know before, because I've had a whole series of experiences from when I painted it originally till that moment. And I'll have the tools and the insights and the awarenesses, and I can just utilize my tools and simplify something or enhance something a little bit more and bring out a little more contrast, and boom, that'll be all it would take. So even though you sign the painting and you think it's done, sometimes you gotta let it, age like a good bottle of wine, right? So you just never know when it's time, but you'll know.
How do you work when you're inspired or on a certain schedule?
No, when I'm inspired, you got to be inspired. You got to feel.
But do you sometimes show up at a place that you may not be inspired yet?
Yeah, sometimes. But then that's a challenge to, as an artist, to try to do something or see something that's different every single time. Like I go to Butterfly Beach and I teach classes there, and I've painted maybe, 800 paintings in my life just at that beach alone. But I never get tired of it because I'm always thinking about approaching it from a new point of view and trying something I've never done before. Arturo's good at that too. I mean, he goes down on the bluffs, right? And he's constantly seeing new compositions and new light and coming up with new ideas. So it's always fresh in a sense. So that's the challenge. Most artists, like, if they're not inspired, it means they're not looking at things outside the box. You gotta try something to break it loose. And plein air painting's good for that, because it's never the same twice. Ever. And then, in fact, we're never the same twice.
Good point.
Yes.
Hey, would you care to give contact info, like a website or email?
Yeah, I've got a website. It's www.thomasvanstein.net. And I also show at the Waterhouse Gallery, which is in Santa Barbara. And so please look me up.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.
Well, hi, and you are?
I'm Arturo Tello.
Tell me about this piece of yours. What were some of the design considerations?
Okay, so this is a Nocturne of the Carpinteria Bluffs. And as far as design, there's not much going on for it. There's a major shape here, and it's off-center. So there's a space here that lets you go in the distance, which this is like the bottom of the San Ynez Mountains going toward Rincon. Rincon would be right here, but you don't see it because it's kind of a overcast evening. And so it's a big mass, and it's just, of course, the moon is kind of like in the golden section. In the golden section, nearly a third of the painting, both this way and this way. So if you divide this in thirds, both ways, you'll see that there's 4 spots where you could have your focal point. That's the golden section. And so basically it only has the big mass, the focal point, and a leading line, this curving path. And that's it, very simple.
How do you work? From photos, or what's the process?
I paint on location. So I just started this, I have a song about it. At 6:30, the sun was going down, and then, it becomes night very quick, and then the moon is there, and it's orange because it's still kind of catching the sunset.
Tell me about the technical aspects. Do you mix the paints and you have them all prepared to put them up ahead of time?
This is acrylic, so I'm using the Marcia Burt system, which is to have your wet paints in a tackle box. and you just have a limited palette that you mix on the spot. And what you do is you have a gooseneck lamp, and you put it on your palette that you can see your mixture of colors. Then you turn it off, let your eyes adjust for a minute, and you look at what's out there. You get an image of what you want to paint in your head. You turn on the light, you mix your color, and go for it. And that's all.
Is there a message or tone or concept you're communicating here?
No, I'm very simply painting what I see, or trying to paint what I see at night. But it's wonderful to paint in the evening. It's just romantic.
Yourself, or are there commercial considerations?
I guess there's both. I would not paint something that I wouldn't think people would want to fall in love with. So it's both. I love to paint what I love, and hopefully because of that I'm human, and people who are human will be looking at these paintings. They might fall in love too.
What's this painting priced at?
It's 5,000, and it's 3 feet by 5 by. It's 48 by 36, so 3 by 4.
Anything else we should know about this piece?
Like I said, I have a song about it, and I'll play it for you sometime.
And the name of it is?
The painting is the supermoon. The song is the blushing moon.
Okay, and is there a contact info, like a website for yourself?
Yeah, arturotello.com.
Okay, thanks, Arturo.
Thank you.
And you are?
Susan Griffin.
Tell me about your piece here. What are some of the design considerations that you have?
Well, the raven that I did, the eye is always the most important part when I do something that I love, an animal that I love. So I always start with the eye, and then the blue feathers in the front were, I felt, a great detail to add to my painting. And of course I started with the background first, so it was that great orange background contrasting color against the blue.
Is there a certain distance you expect people to see it from?
Close up.
Close up?
Yeah.
How do you work? Do you work from a photo, or?
Sometimes I work from photos. I usually take all the photos myself, and then go from there, play around with them. I like doing things close up.
Do you put it aside and get back to it sometimes, or do you normally finish it in one sitting?
No, it usually takes quite a few sittings. I usually take the photographs myself, and then I take photographs every day when I go for walks with my dog. And this one a friend shared with me, and I just fell in love with it. And I loved the feathers, I loved the animal in itself. So once I start sketching, then like I said, I do the eye first, and then
how do you sketch, with charcoal or pencil?
Charcoal, because it's a pastel, so I'll sketch with charcoal or an ebony pencil, and then I'll start working on the eye. Once I have the composition down, if there's a lot of negative space and positive space, and feel like I'm comfortable that it's going to be something that I would love, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then I start with the eye, and then I just go from there. Then it's just pretty quick. But those feathers in the front on his chest took me an awful long time to do, I must admit. It usually doesn't go as slowly as it did, but I was trying to get a lot of that detail.
For those that don't know, what's the deal with negative and positive space?
Well, to me, it makes a painting, and it reminds me of a Japanese print.
What is negative and positive?
Well, this would be negative space, and the yellow, the orange, the background, and then the positive space would be the crow, the raven.
And are there other design considerations like lighting, contrast, that type of thing?
I felt like it was important to illuminate underneath his chin to bring you into it. And then also my dearest friend Bert Collins up in Ojai, she always has taught me to add in the foreground, have it dark so you go into the painting. Your eye goes into the painting. It draws you into it.
Is there a sequence of events? Is it first the eye and then what?
Well, first the background.
I mean, sequence of events when the viewer looks at it.
Oh, I think I think that because of the contrasting in colors, probably a person that would walk in would see the light on the background first. Yeah, yeah, and then walk up to it and then look at the eye. It seems to me that everybody that...
In the eye, I can't see from you. Is there a reflection in the eye?
Yes.
It's too high up for it to see.
Yes, it is. And that AR glass is being a little tricky. So, with the light.
Do you ever put it aside and get back to it later, or how does that work?
Yes, I'm working on a piece right now that's been sitting looking at me for a while, and I finally stuck it on the table, so it's like, okay, get to work. So, it's tricky with the weather around here and all the events that have been going on the last year. Sometimes things sit for a while between the fire and the flooding and now the heat wave. And
how do you work? Do you wait till you're inspired, or do you have a certain timetable, or how does it work?
No, it's all inspiration, and I'm usually inspired all the time. But life sort of deals you a few things that kind of you step back, you garden or decide to paint the house.
But you need that inspiration to get going.
You do need the
Some artists
inspiration.
just do 9 to 5 and they're working no matter what.
Yeah.
But others just have to be inspired to get going.
Yeah, no, I've taken quite a few steps back after working at the Santa Barbara Museum of Art for 15 years and just, it's like 9 to 5 and oh my God, it was just so tricky. So now this is my time, so I just do it when I am inspired. But like I said, when I walk every day, I take pictures, so I'm always inspired. It's just a matter of fact of sitting down. Someone asked me to do a piece about a month ago, and I sold it, and then it was like, yay, I'll do another one. Oh, now I'm going to do another one. So that was kind of fun.
So I was going to ask something, but I can't remember it at the moment. But I was going to say something like, do you have commercial considerations, or do you paint for yourself?
No, I paint for myself, and Arturo, bless that man, he hangs my artwork, and otherwise it would all sit at my house and collect dust.
I remember what I was going to ask. You said it kind of depends upon what's going on in your life. Can I ask you what's going on in your life other than painting?
Well, I live in Ojai. I do not work anymore for various reasons, and so I just live a pretty quiet life. I have about a half an acre, and I have critters, chickens, dogs. My German Shepherd just passed away, so that sort of pulled me back from painting. I was 14 years old. I've loved birds, so I have a nice little sweet spot, and it's just kind of a great place to sit and hang out. So, and I'm just trying to enjoy every minute that I have left. So,
this is a very nice piece. Is there anything about it that you're critical of, that you could have done better, or are there any things in general that you're not as good at as other things?
I love this piece. To me, I feel like it's some of my best work. I struggle with landscapes, and then there's so many great landscape artists. It's just, let's just leave that to them because they're so good. But yeah, the light that shines in that landscape over there, Arturo's piece, every time I see his work, I'm just mesmerized. So it makes me want to, maybe try that. But I've always been very good at drawing, and I've always can make things look like a photograph, and then it took a really long time to learn color. And when I worked for the Santa Barbara Museum of Art teaching children, I really learned from them about color because they were just so free about everything. So it made me kind of loosen up.
Is there a message or tone or concept you'd like people to get from this work?
I feel like there's a spiritual totem aspect of it.
What do you mean by that?
Like up in Washington or Alaska, where the raven is the teacher. So I feel like there's some message that a raven brings.
What are your art influences?
Oh, when I was a kid, you know, Picasso, Henry Moore, I loved doing sculptures, Rembrandt, Leonardo da Vinci, all the great masters. And then when I started working for the museum, my job was to teach children, but I would have to pick 8 pieces from the exhibit, research the artists, learn their style, and then teach it in the schools. And boy, what a great job that was, because I just fell in love with so many different, you know, German expressionists, things that I probably would have never even thought twice about.
What are your influences other than art?
Influences other than art, cooking. Is cooking? Is that would be one? I'm a great cook. Used to work for Wolfgang Puck. So, and sports, cycling, swimming, working out, the beach. Beach is my, there's a great artist, that was from San Francisco in around the earthquake time, and he was an Italian artist, and there was an exhibit at the Santa Barbara Museum of Art, and they asked him what his religion was, and he said California, and pretty much Rincon Beach is my religion. It's my great love, and where I go and hide.
What do you get from that?
Oh, I just get this great. It's great to be alive. What a blessing.
Anything else you'd like to? Actually, one question I have is, how much are you selling that painting for?
I don't know. It was up to Arturo. 800.
Okay, 800. Anything else you care to say about that?
No, but thank you so much.
Well,
That was
you.
really
And what's
lovely.
your contact info? Do you have a website or email?
I do. It's SusanGriffinOhai.com. Yeah.
And how do you spell that? Susan?
Griffin, Griffin,
Susan,
Susan.
Hey, thanks a lot, Susan.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
My name is Mary Gail King.
Tell me the name of this piece here.
This piece is Nyurka and Reina.
Tell me about it.
Well, the 2 women in the painting they're actually named after women named Nyurka and Reina, and they're part of a group that I do a lot of work with. I work on mythos and legend and gods and goddesses, that kind of thing. And recently I went on a retreat with Nyurka, who's this woman. She's the leader of a group that hard to describe without going into everything. But this particular event is one where we explored the archetypes of different gods and goddesses, especially related to the solar system. So during one of our ceremonial events, we all dressed up in garb that was reminiscent of the god Mars, which is the god of war.
Are you dressed like that today?
No, this is actually channeling moon energy.
This is your shopping attire.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is, we did work based on, some of it was representational, symbolic of color. And the color black, for example, that I'm wearing relates to the moon. The colors that Nyurka was wearing, red, and Rena is actually wearing a Native American headdress and, very ceremonial warrior type garb. And when I'm doing work with these people, for instance, when we were dressed like this, there were 100 of us dressed in red. We went down to the beach in
No problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
we went down to the beach in San Diego to shoot bow and arrow, which was really cool. And essentially, a lot of what we do with Nyurka is based on neuro-linguistic programming, which is a way of changing or manifesting things in the world by changing your thoughts and your words and your actions. So it ties into cognitive science and tradition of neuro-linguistic programming. all kinds of information there. Basically, we were shooting balls that had our goals on them. So we're shooting balls with our bow and arrow as teams, moving our balls towards our goals. So just kind of team building, playing with fantasy and ideas and ways of tapping into the divine nature of human beings and our connection to each other and the divine and the world. So when I was doing this, it's kind of amazing because when you work with women like that for a period of 3 days, and you're doing intense work, and a lot of it is focused on outer beauty, and in all of its manifestations, whether it's conventionally beautiful or not conventionally beautiful, like you can be any size, shape, color, have anything, going on, but you're still beautiful. And when you see that, and I was very inspired by the different women I was around because of their very strong beauty. And it was interesting because when you look at a person and start to objectify them a little bit, you see some of what they're projecting into the world that is archetypical. And I'm rambling, so.
Good. Can I ask you what you project, or what you would like to project?
Well, all of us.
No problem. You were saying?
All of us actually embody all of the different archetypes at one point in time or another. And one of the things that we did in our work is tap into our individual, like I may channel moon energy, which is more feminine, more introverted, or the energy of Venus, which is very, Venetian, very seductive and sensual. Mars is very direct and focused. I feel like I do that a lot. And what happens is when you're aware of those kinds of energies within yourself, you can very intentionally evoke different characteristics. If that makes any sense. It's just a way of viewing the world in an ancient way and bringing it into the modern world in a very mindful way, and very mindfully, not just putting something in the outer world, but developing positive things within you and being aware of things that may not be as positive and understanding how to alchemize and shift those things. So, we carry everything.
Can I ask you, what were some of the design or composition considerations in this piece?
Well, in the original, I used a photo reference. I also, when I do people and when I paint things, what I'm looking for is essence. And I look for capturing the feel or the true nature of a thing or a person. So when I saw this, I saw in the photograph that I referenced, these two women were in the same picture plane, so they were equally important in the photograph. I did not want that in the composition of the painting because it wouldn't be as strong. As a painter, I wanted to shift that focus a little bit, and I wanted to shift it to Nurka because she's the leader of this of our group and of this particular ceremony also. And I focused on making her a little more representational. I made sure that I captured, she has this very angry kind of direct gaze that has, she's got the furrowed brow and very focused eyes with small pupils, that kind of thing. That is not something that everyone would say is necessarily beautiful. However, it's very powerful. Reina was, she puts out an energy that you can feel anywhere you can see her, you can feel her. And I wanted her to be a little bit more symbolic. And to me, she in this painting represents a little more male energy than female energy. And all of us contain male and female. So I just kind of played with that. So there was a little bit of this dialogue between the male and the female. Both of them are very powerful, and I really wanted to make sure that that was conveyed. It's a small piece, and the reason for that is because I'm working in an intimate way with some of these original pieces. I plan on creating them and turning them into a tarot deck of goddess cards, and that's in the process. I have a series of these right now. And I also expect to do some of them larger because monumental, these will be very, very powerful pieces. So that will take some time. I expect to do this over the course of the next year. And I'm looking forward to seeing it evolve and to looking into the different faces of women and no doubt men who, and seeing what I see there and pulling that out.
Is there anything that didn't work as well as you had hoped in this piece, or is there anything that you're weak on overall in your artwork? Nothing, that's fine.
There are always challenges when dealing with composition.
Like what?
Well, with this one, the biggest challenge, and I feel like I pretty successfully handled it, the biggest challenge, again, with two faces, even in a picture plane, when you're referencing a photo or looking at something, is creating a sense of dominance and focus. And I wanted this, and conveying meaning through how the composition is chosen. So I very intentionally chose a portrait, a long, narrow shape because it's people. I very intentionally, instead of dividing it directly down the middle, it needed to be over this way. This area, I considered cropping that arrow, but it's fine. And in a future piece, I may or may not keep that, or I may change it. This kind of space down here isn't necessarily necessary. It's successful either way. The feathers are something that could use a little more differentiation, a little more contrast in there, but if I did too much, it might take away from the focus of the painting. So I'm very much designing it with a sense of who do I want to make important in this piece? How do I create that dominance? How do I create meaning out of the relationship between the two figures? And how do I convey some of that meaning to a viewer? So there's a lot in here. There's some symbolism, archetypical symbolism in here. Well, some of the symbols are things like the third eye being represented here by the little dot. It has an eagle on it, actually, and you can't really see it because I don't have the gory detail in there, but that and the reds, the red projecting the power, and the symbol of war. There are all kinds of things in there. And I don't want them to be overtly, I don't want to tell people everything. I want people to guess and imagine. You don't have to know who these people are. They don't have to be real. They can be pretend. You can like them or not, And, so that's what's there. I don't know if that helps. The only thing I would in critique do here is potentially crop it there. And if it didn't work, I would do another one. You just do another one.
Well, thank you very much. Your name again is?
Mary Gail King.
Do you want to give any contact info, like a website or email?
Yeah, my website is fairly easy if you know how to spell my name. It's www.marygailking, .com. So you should be able to find me. There's a contact information form. Follow me on Facebook under the same name. Pretty easy.
Thank you. That was easy.
Oh, good. Good, thank you.
And you are?
I'm Kevin Gleason.
Tell me about this piece. What would you care to tell me about it?
So this was a painting that I did in plein air. It was out at El Refugio State Beach. And I was standing, if you're familiar with the spot, there's some palm trees there. I was standing in the shade of one of the palms one day. And when I do a plein air painting, I'm just trying, my main goal is to try and capture the feel of the place, and to really, a painting to me is a memory of a moment and a place and time. And so it's just a beautiful sunny day, and I just liked the way that the light was falling. My focal point was the wave breaking and that rock formation on that left side, and so that was kind of what I was focusing on, and just trying to get the feel of the springtime there with the mustards in bloom and the light hitting the rocks and the wave.
Can you stand a little closer to it?
Sure.
You can turn this way. What are some of the design considerations? Can you tell me about the composition or concept, and like for the layperson?
Yeah. So for me, I wanted this is kind of my focal area. It's the area that you sort of find your eye drawn to. That's the area I was most interested in. So because of that, it's the areas of highest contrast. I have some of the darkest darks in the entire painting are here, and the brightest lights are the light hitting the top of the wave. And I have some saturated warm colors in these rocks here, so it's sort of, your eye can't help but look there. And I tried to make other angles, the beach sort of curving back, this path that goes through the grass here, everything kind of leads the viewer back there. It's almost like you feel like yourself being drawn and walking back. And I downplayed some of the detail in this area and sort of softened things a little so that, again, so you're sort of drawn there. And generally I try and have the focal point not be right smack in the center of the painting. That makes the painting feel kind of static. So I like these big shapes, and that little taste of ocean, kind of makes you really it makes it precious, makes you sort of savor that little spot.
What's the name of it, and what's it priced at?
Say it again?
What's the name of it, and what's it priced at?
Oh, this is Refugio Beach Point, and it's $950.
How do you work? Do you wait till you're inspired, or do you just show up and work, or do you have certain procedures?
I have always just exploring the world. I'm always kind of looking for just moments of beauty, like places that I think are beautiful. And I'm fascinated with light, and so I like to think about what time of day, there's such different light, early in the morning, or at dusk, or midday, or on foggy days, or when there's clouds or no clouds. And so each site, I like to kind of, I've interpreted Refugio Point from different angles and many different times of day, and it's always just going out there and walking around a little bit and waiting until I just can't resist but set up the easel and start painting.
Tell me about the light here. Where's it coming from, and what's it doing?
The light here's pretty high in the sky, and it's sort of midday, which is not always the most dramatic, time for light. But on this one, because these rocks, just the direction on the compass that they're pointing, I still I like contrast, and so they still had this shadow sort of area and these strong lights on this rim lighting on the edge that I was really drawn to. And I liked how the mustard flowers overlapped this distant shadow here, so they gave me an opportunity to use bright yellows next to muted darker purples, and sort of get some nice contrast there.
What are your art influences?
Definitely the Impressionists have always been an influence. I've loved Vincent van Gogh and always enjoyed his work. Most recently, I'm really influenced by the Hudson River School artists, particularly Frederick Edwin Church. I love the detail in his paintings, so it's something that in my most recent work, I'm starting to do paintings that have even smaller brushstrokes than this, so smaller shapes and details, but still kind of keeping the same kind of impressionistic style that I have.
What are your influences other than art?
I love music.
Like what music?
I particularly love independent bluegrass music. I like music that is instrumental and acoustic and has some complexity to it, and I like songs that are, have interesting things to think about in the lyrics as well. So yeah, I love to listen to music when I work, and I'm inspired by gardening and sustainable design and working with plants and things like that as well. And I also like native skills, animal tracking. I have a lot of interests.
Do you make a living from your art?
I'm from painting, and also I'm an art teacher. So I teach art at the high school in Goleta.
Excellent job. Is there anything you're critical of in this piece or your work in general that you have a hard time with?
Not really. Art is just something it's what I tell my students is it's a lifelong thing. It's what makes being an artist such a great occupation is you can do it your entire life and always be getting better. And so it's just nice having something that you never feel like I'm done, and I've done that. Every painting I make, it's the most recent one's always my favorite, and I'm excited to make the next one and make it something even better. So.
When you paint, are you painting for a particular audience, or are there commercial considerations?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I'm also have the income as an art teacher, I don't have to worry about that as much as if I was, solely subsisting on my art. But it does. I do enjoy selling things. I show in galleries and put my work out there, and it helps me, just sort of keep moving along. At some point, I'm going to retire from teaching and be painting full time. So, that is always a consideration. I want to make things that appeal to other people. But when it comes down to it, what I think happens is if I make something that I truly love and I'm really inspired by, other people seem to react to it. So as an artist, the best thing you can do is just make what is really moving you the most.
If it was just commercial consideration, is there something you would do more waves or anything?
I guess I don't really think too much about that. I mostly just I paint from what I'm most excited about. I love landscape. I like to be outside in nature. And for me, painting, it's my Zen moment. I go outside and stand in front of a scene, and just it's 3 hours of very intense focus, just really studying and just absorbing, what I'm seeing and trying to record it. And it's fun to go back the next day. You don't always even know what you made. It's kind of you don't know what the painting looks like until you get it away and look at it the following day. And sometimes you're just like, not bad. I'm kind of happy with how that one came out, and
How long does it take to make a painting like this, and is it all in one setting?
So this one, it's all in one sitting. So I was out there about 3 hours that day, including a half-hour little swim break in the to kind of rest my mind and eyes and kind of take a break from it. But then when I get them home, they always there's always something that's bugging me about it that I have to go and alter and change to kind of fix it up. So it's really good to have that that time away from the painting to really or time with the painting away from the scene to ask yourself if it's really communicating what the scene feels like. Sometimes changing things makes it feel more like the place than staying. I don't know. I've lost my train of thought, but
Is this your daughter?
This is my daughter, Quinn. She's an excellent artist as well.
Apart from your art, what else is going on in your life?
I have two daughters. I have it's summer right now, but they're going to be sixth grader and eighth grader next year. So that's the most fun in my life, is going out with them and experiencing the world. They like to be out in nature and go hiking and do things like that with me. So we're doing that, and I have my lovely wife Lauren, and so we go hiking, camping, and do things like that a lot together. And other than that, not a lot.
Well, thank you. And would you care to give any contact info, like a website or email address?
Sure. My website is kevingleasonart.com. And you can also follow my work. I put my work on Facebook. I have an artist's page that people can follow, and on Instagram. And my email is kevingleasonart@gmail.com.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you.
Good show. Hi, and you are?
Jeremy Harper.
And what's the name of your piece here?
This one is Gaviota, I think. Yep.
How much is it?
3,000,
Okay,
I think.
it's fair.
Yeah.
And tell me, can you tell me about this piece? Like how it was created, about the composition, or whatever you'd like to say?
I can. Like most of us, I'm on Facebook, and I saw some pictures my sister put up that I really liked, and one of them I liked enough to save the image and later print it out. And I had this picture, a photograph of this that my sister took for a year or two, and it was just kind of shuffled in a bunch of papers. And I thought, one day I want to paint that. And just the other day, some of these canvases I have laying around, they get kind of old, and the spiders start living in the back, and even sometimes the rats start chewing on them, and I thought I better get on it. So I just got that and had fun with an acrylic. It's like 3 colors, all browns, 3 different browns, and then I liked it enough to like layer on some oil paint over the top of it. But it was kind of a playful thing that I was just messing around, because I'm mostly a plein air painter. I mostly paint outside, but if it's super foggy or too hot or whatever, then I'll just paint at home.
Can you tell me about the composition elements? Like, for a layperson, what's going on there?
Well, I've always thought that, I've been told that compositionally you want to have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background, and there's a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. I personally feel like there's too much sky, but if I would have bought a canvas for that photo, it would have been about this high and not had all that up there. But
you can't cut it down afterwards?
You probably could, but it's a lot of work, and it makes, I don't know, to do all that. Canvas is cheap enough if you buy them like online or when they're on sale. It's just easier to.
How much is a canvas?
I'd say the average one is between $50 and $150 if you're painting kind of large, and if you're painting really small, they're anywhere from $5 to $25.
Do you make your living from art?
I do.
And are there commercial considerations, and what are you considering? Do you have a certain audience in mind, or buyer, or how does commercial aspect?
Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're just winging it and going out there and doing whatever you feel like at spur of the moment. Other times, you've heard people in the past say, "Oh, I would love a painting of Ledbetter," and so you go make a couple and hope that they swing by again one day and buy one.
Were there any commercial considerations in either of these?
Neither one of those, no. This was just a photo I liked my sister took, and this was a guy called me that 2 of his sons lived back there in the back country of Carpinteria, and he called me one day and he said, the hills are velvet green, the lupin's blooming, there's the scar of the fire, and the whole thing together is really spectacular, and he said, you got to come up here right now. So I did. Drove up there and painted the Chismahoo Rebirth.
Very nice. What are your art influences?
Mostly Arturo Teo and
and me, but apart from that.
No, I honestly, when I was younger, I didn't have too many. I kind of gravitated towards the ones that were in everybody's mind around the entire planet, like Picasso and Van Gogh and Gauguin and stuff like that. And then when you get older and go to art school or whatever, you learn about millions of different artists. But I think that the better ones, just like in music, they kind of are the ones that stand the test of time. Like, I went through a stage for a while, like I wanted to hear nothing but new music. And for 15 years I did that, and I was fascinated by it, and I got a lot of favorites. But then I started to compare them in recent years, like to Jimi Hendrix or Van Morrison, to like these newer bands that in the last 15, 20 years have developed. And the old guys are so much better than the new guys, the new music. It just doesn't have the depth and the raw, like the elements that something magical was happening back then in the 60s and 70s that I don't really see happening now. Maybe a little bit here and there, but
you may have answered, but what influences your art other than other art?
Yeah, I think the ocean for sure, surfing in the ocean, and I like the flow of things like water, like the way the water moves in and out of a tide pool and swirls around big rocks and comes up and rests for a moment, and then as the tide goes, it starts to suck out and swirl around and leave again. And I like the movement of nature, especially with water and wind, the way it wraps around trees and mountains and clouds, or if you look at time-lapse clouds going over a mountain, it's neat. That kind of thing is inspiring.
Nice. Lastly, is your ego involved with your art, and if so, how?
Well, I think if your ego is not involved with yourself, you won't live. Your ego's involved. Everybody's ego's involved. It's self-preservation. You have to think about yourself, or you're gonna wither away and fall into a corner. So, yeah, I think your ego is definitely involved. I mean, some people more than others, but you have to. I don't know. You got to hold your head up and feel good about what you're doing, or I don't think you're going to do very well. You have to have some confidence. You have to instill some of that in yourself, and I think that is ego.
Nice. And, would you care to share some contact info, like a website or your email address?
Sure. My email address is traveljer, J-E-R, @yahoo.com, and website is jeremy-harper.com. I'm also on Instagram as Jeremy Harper Artist. And
well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So what's going on?
So we have a show called Places to Play In and Pray In. And that's from a quote from John Muir. And says that everybody needs it for their soul. And so here at the Palm Loft Gallery, we really believe in that. Open spaces are nourishment for our souls. And so all the artists that are here provided paintings of places that they love, either to go play in or pray in. And I'm very happy to know these people. They're very talented.
You're the gallery director?
I'm the gallery owner.
And your name?
Arturo Tello.
And what's the website?
palmloft.com.
Hey, thanks, Arturo.
Thank you.